Hey, it's After the Gig. I'm Jesse Humphrey. Welcome to the show. Today on the show, it's Katie Mussleman. She's back and she's asking more questions. I sat down with Katie before our show at the Steel Stacks in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is the first time I've played on that stage since I played back in, 2012 or 2013 with Love in Stockholm. So it was super awesome to be back. A really great backdrop for this video. So if you're not watching on video, make sure you head over to YouTube and watch the podcast on video, and make sure you subscribe. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I would really greatly appreciate it. Also, newsletter. The newsletter gives you little snippets of music news and kind of thoughts from me and things like that. So click the description down below to go subscribe to that newsletter and get it every Sunday. And it's awesome, and I think you'll love it. Without further ado, here's me sitting down here with Katie Mussleman.
So my first question, I think I had a Facebook memory pop up that you had just released the podcast we did last year.
Yep.
But my first question goes back to the show where we talked.
Yep.
In
Sellersville,
Sellersville. Yeah. So I bought a shirt there that you are all selling at cost because there was this tiny little speck of ink that Barry was not happy with. And so he was just going to get them reprinted. Those are being sold for cost. And as he's explaining how this one tiny dot of ink was just certainly going to ruin these shirts and they were not what he wanted, Terry kind of quipped, like, see what we have to deal with? And, everyone chuckles. But I thought his perfectionism and his drive for detail and eye for detail is partly what makes Carbon Leaf great and has given it longevity. So what trait do you bring to the band that simultaneously contributes to the success but also drives the guys nuts?
It's definitely not perfectionism, I'll tell you that much. But the thing about Barry and stuff like that is usually if someone has a personality trait like that, it's like they don't get anything done. Like it's a hindrance more than it is a benefit to anything. So with Barry, he has both sides of it. Like he has this, like, oh, this is the way that it should be, and I'm not going to accept anything less than that. But he also does all the office work. He also does all that stuff to actually make the moves and get things done. Like he'll constantly say like we got to move through the target. Like he always says that. So we have to like get things done, and then when things will if something's not quite right, it'll bother him a lot, and then he'll take the time to get it right. For me, I don't know really. That's a really hard question. I feel like I play well, and I just, I'll speak up when there's something happening on stage that I don't think isn't quite right.
Yep.
And John's the same way, and something that I'm sure drives them crazy is that, like, whenever I come into town and play, like, get on the bus and stuff, like, I don't, like, they are more hands-on with the taking care of the bus and like doing the thing. So when I come in, I'm a little bit more hands-off, which I feel like might bother them a little bit over time, like over the course of a thing. It's like, hey, you can take out the garbage, So,
you probably have that skill set.
I do my best. Best, but sometimes it's just you don't think of it. But I don't know. You'd have to ask one of them. Like,
maybe I will.
Yeah.
Maybe I will. But
I'm sure there's something.
Tell to wander over.
I'm far from perfect.
We all have those where, like, we contribute. In our families, we contribute to our families in ways that benefit them, but also you can take it a little too far, and then everyone's, just going nuts.
For sure. Yeah, I'm bad. Like, I'll leave stuff kind of sitting around. I'll drink like half a bottle of water, and then it'll just sit there, and then I won't finish it.
That would drive me nuts.
Yeah, so
that would drive me nuts.
That's definitely my thing, for sure, which I'm working on.
Yeah. So yeah, it would be interesting to hear, like, from each of the guys' perspective. I won't make you call them out, because that could get ugly pretty quickly.
I won't. That's a good question, though.
A couple headlines recently have been about the quote-unquote bad behavior of well-known artists. And I'm thinking, there was one who was kind of heckled and told to stick to music as he was telling a story in the middle of the show, and he walked off the stage. I think eventually he did come back on, to finish the set. And then there's, several artists who are known for not just being late for shows, but hours late to the point where people should be going home and they're just walking on stage.
Yeah, I think they should go home when stuff like that happens.
Right.
If it's sometimes there's extenuating circumstances, but like, people like Lauryn Hill are like, very well known for showing up very late for shows. I don't think people should pay tickets to go see her.
Right.
I think she's an amazing artist, but like you can't take advantage of people like that.
Yeah. And I guess that's where it starts, is people have to stop buying the tickets because to walk out of the show, they've already bought the tickets.
Yeah. But I don't know, who knows like why they're so late. Sometimes they're late. I mean, I'd hate to think that they're late just because I'm show up when I want to show up,
I think that's the suspicion, especially if you're habitually late. Like you've got a team of wranglers who could work to make everything fit together.
Right.
But does being like a successful touring musician give you any sympathy to those musicians in those situations? Or are you kind of more with the listeners who are saying like, we paid a lot of money for some of those shows. The least you could do is kind of be on time.
I think like doing it, you have some kind of understanding of like the extenuating circumstances of touring and travel and stuff. You're traveling more than other people. Things come up, but like when it comes down to it, there's people buying tickets to come and see you play. So you owe it to them to be on time and put on a good show. So I'm like, I get it. I get that things happen, but
not habitually.
No, you gotta be there for the people paying tickets. They're the reason why you're doing it. So like I'm more on the side of the audience than on the artist.
Good to know.
I think it's like anything. It's like, if you're late for work all the time, like you got to plan ahead. No one's gonna wait for you.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's,
if they close a road for construction, you can't just use that as your excuse.
Right.
For the whole
Yeah. It's like we have Google Maps. It probably showed that it was closed. I don't know. But I'm more on the side of the audience when it comes to that.
I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about the idea of creating art versus a commodity. And I was wondering if you could kind of flesh out some of your thoughts on that, because I think, somebody like Taylor Swift could release whatever the hell album she wants, and it doesn't actually matter if no one buys it. Like, she can live forever and not do another thing in her life pertaining to music. But a lot of musicians are not in that position. Most musicians are not. So how do you balance that, creating for yourself, creating art and having it be meaningful to you, but also realizing it's a commodity? Yeah,
well, it for sure is a commodity. So like you have to do things that separate yourself from other artists. So, and you're only gonna do that by being yourself. So the people go and do outrageous things like, it's a bad example. It's not a terrible example, but like Lady Gaga will go out and wear crazy clothes, and she really leans into her persona and things like that, and she's earned her fan base by being like that over. I don't know what the word I'm looking for
is.
Over
the top.
Yeah, really, just over the top character. Like people love that and hate it. So you have to be somewhat polarizing to stand out in the crowd of a bunch of artists. Like Taylor Swift's most recent album, I didn't like it, but I just feel like, in my opinion, it's a ton of music that she just had to unload and just get out there. And it's very like, it's like you're reading her journal. Okay. And I'm not necessarily a huge fan of that because it's for me, it's too personal to connect to. So like, I didn't love that album, but anyone that I talk to about this album is that like, okay, they're just getting out this music and then she'll reinvent herself on the next one. She's just hitting the reset button, I think, on a bunch of old songs that she had in the bank. That's how I feel about it, because I just wasn't super, like, it wasn't, it didn't feel like a Taylor Swift album to me. It wasn't like I don't know, I just didn't like it.
And that kind of leads into something else. Why do you think there's so much anger when people cross over? Like Beyonce released a country album, and that was just the end of the world for some people. Yeah. And then, likewise, Taylor Swift started in country, big deal when she crossed over, and heaven forbid, you're like someone like Shania Twain, who kind of does a country pop thing, and you're the first one to do it. Like, why do you think people want to pigeonhole artists so much? Because I would guess that most listeners don't just listen to one genre.
Yeah, I think they just don't want to. I feel like fans just don't want to let them, like, they don't want to share them with other people. You know what I mean? If a band starts off playing in clubs and you were a big fan of them, and then all of a sudden they're playing stadiums, a lot of people don't like that.
Oh,
you know, they're like, oh, I knew them when they were.
I knew them before.
Such and such, and things like that can be. I don't know. I think it's silly. Like, if Beyonce wants to go and make a country album, that's great. And when people get pissed, that's when you know you're doing something right. It's because it's the same thing. It's like you're polarizing. It's a little bit like out of left field, and like, okay, like you would like them to make the decision to make that music because that's the music they want to make, rather than what they think is going to work or be popular. Because I don't think that works as well as like being true to yourself and doing the thing you want to do.
Right.
Like John Mayer is a great example of going from super pop guy. You know, he made Continuum and Battle Studies, and he admittedly was not in a good place with Battle Studies because he felt like he was just trying to do more of the same, and then he took a long break, he had the vocal thing, and then he came back with Born and Raised, which was a completely different thing. And a lot of people weren't super into the fact that he did that, but if he didn't stick with it and stay true to what he was doing, you know, who knows what would have happened, but he stuck with it, switched it up. Like, people are afraid of changing their style or whatever because they think they're going to lose their career, when I think it just reinvents it and you find a new thing, you know?
Well, and I think, you know, what I listened to 10, 15, 20 years ago is really different than what I listen to now. And just my style, my taste, just lots of different stuff has changed. So I'm thinking, if a band's been at it, you know, as long as you guys have, why wouldn't you go in different directions or say, this is kind of what I'm into right now. I'm feeling this vibe right now, as opposed to we always have to have a rock album with kind of a folky undertone or an Irish undertone.
You got to spice it up. You got to try new things and do different things, and because other people's music that you listen to influence your music and influence what you're doing at the time and all that. So I mean, it just makes sense that people would try different genres or different things. And there's only so much you can do in one lane. You know?
I think it'd be very limiting and also get very boring to the listeners if everyone was just, this is my lane and I'm going to stay in it.
You would hear things like, oh, this sounds a lot like this thing. Like they just made that again. You know, that would happen. And then who knows, when artists branch out and they try something new, when they come back, maybe they tackle what they're known for at a different angle or a different way, maybe with different musicians that add a different kind of texture to it.
Well, and that's similar to what you're doing with all the Gathering releases, but then this soon-to-be released album of 2021 or whatever that's coming out. Like that, from what I understand and from the release, it's more of a rock album. So it's kind of saying, like, we'll put this on an album or two, and then we'll do an album like this. So you're kind of recognizing, we have different styles and we're going to categorize them. But we're not going to limit ourselves.
Right, which I think is cool, because I mean, you know, when you have someone like Carter in your band, it's easy. You can't pigeonhole. Like, there's lots of different things happening. So it works when you compartmentalize it and say, all right, this is going to be this series, and this is how this is going to work, and this is this batch of songs. But then you come back over here, and this is more like, you know, classic Carbon Leaf or whatever. So I think it's a really nice way of doing it. And then you have things like Ghost Dragon, which is kind of a separate thing. And so it's pretty interesting the way that Barry drew it up, and it's cool. So who knows when the next Gathering is going to come out.
Well, and it's fun. We were telling someone about this show. Eric was wearing a Carbon Leaf shirt, and the guy at the restaurant just commented on the design. And we were explaining, oh, this show's coming up. He said, well, what kind of music do they play? And it's just like, okay, let me give you the long rundown.
That's always the hardest question for us to answer.
There's a lot, but it's just one of those, it's palatable to most people.
Yeah, and it gets, like, that whole conversation was like, how would you categorize Carbon Leaf?
Yeah.
Like, it hurts us, not hurts us, but it gets us into the place where we're like, oh, we would like to play Americana Fest or whatever, and then people that run Americana Fest are like, well, you're not exactly Americana, and then we go and play like something else. It's hard to fit us into a certain thing.
Right.
And like the Americana people are hardcore, love to stay true to those roots, and which I don't blame them for that.
Right.
But it makes it hard for us to fit in and do everything, because we do what we do well. It's just we're not really sure what that is.
Right.
So it's good for us to kind of, I don't know, do our own thing, I guess, and not try to fit into any of those boxes.
Well, it's obviously working.
I hope so. I think so.
Yeah.
We're here.
We'll see as it fills up.
This is nice.
So, one thing I think about fairly often is just what is the optics on the dynamic of the listener-musician relationship? Because I think with you releasing podcasts so frequently, you're doing the Behind the Wheel series, which is super fun, and it gives us a very intimate glimpse into some of your lives and your bodily issues. But it's so unbalanced in some ways because you have so much out there, and I think we, to an extent, feel that we know you so well.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, you look out, and I don't know what percentage of the people on a given night you could actually put a name to, but they know where your moles are, they know your wife's name, they know your son's name, Yeah. And so what is that like, that people know so much about you, and hopefully you know their name, maybe?
I think it's fun. Yeah, it gets hard from like town to town. It takes a little memory jogging.
Yeah.
But like, obviously there's you guys, there's plenty of people around the country that I'm on, more than a first name basis with and everything. But I think it's important. I kind of went through a thing over the last couple months where I was like, I need to just like put more stuff out there. I did a lot of research on kind of how to do that and do it the right way. I've been, trying to hone in my podcast a lot more and make it less, episodes with John aside, but like trying to make it more of a educational and informal, informational thing, where it's digestible and a little less like, loose, you know what I mean? And I try to like add in little snippets and stuff, because ultimately, like, I want to create a community with After the Gig and stuff, and it's always hard to balance that with Carbon Leaf and doing those things, because I don't want to like do things that no one else wants, like show sides that people don't want to show or anything. But I always loved concert DVDs and seeing backstage and wanting to know more about the artist. So like, I just think that being an open book is cooler than being like sheltered, because there's people that love music and that there's this whole other side to it, and so many great personalities that are awesome. So I mean, why not let them in? You know what I mean? So I think it's cool.
It's a great time to do something like Behind the Wheel, because I know that before, you all used to come out after every show. Yeah. And that kind of got flipped on its head a couple years ago, understandably so. And so it's kind of nice, because we don't always get to chat with you after the show, which is completely fine and understandable, but then we still at least feel like we're connecting a little bit and get to ask the questions that maybe we would have asked if we got to chat with you.
And the other thing is, Behind the Wheel, it's like something that it's so much time is spent in those seats.
Yeah.
And so many conversations. Sometimes it's like today I drove and it was silence. I had my headphones in. I was listening to a book on tape. And
what book?
What book? Outliers.
Okay.
Outliers. It's all about like why people are good at stuff and what it takes, and like
sounds really
different circumstances, like the reason why the Rockefellers and why they were so successful in the years they were born, and like the richest people in the world, like in any period of time, were all born in like 1830 something.
Okay.
And it's because there was such a huge change in American manufacturing and stuff like that. At that one time, you had to be a certain age. Like the .com boom, Bill Gates is born in like 1955.
Okay.
So is Steve Jobs. So is all these guys. They're all a certain age to like really be old enough to know that there was a thing happening and young enough to like pursue it.
Jump. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, when you get to the chapter about the early 80s babies, you can tell me what my fortune's gonna be.
I was thinking that was like one of the things. I was like, so what am I? What is my thing? It's
it's not preschool teaching. It hasn't made me rich yet.
Well, what it will be is it'll be probably people born between 1985 and 1988 that were in AI or in tech. So that's like the tech boom or the information boom. Yeah. It'll probably be something like that. So, and not every, it's like a select few people that, you have your, whenever, it's going to be whenever like Mark Zuckerberg was born. Those years are going to be true. Like the huge, like that's the age that everyone that took over that period is going to be absolutely successful. And then the other thing is like Canadian hockey. The book kind of starts with this. There's an age where this is not interesting for this, but
no, go ahead. Great.
But so kids born in January in Canadian hockey, when they got into juniors and stuff like that, they were always the older of all the kids. Yeah. So they got all the ice time, they got all the stuff. So like it's about the age you are to be able to,
That's true. Because when you're 6 or 7, that 10, 11, 12 months can make a huge difference in size.
It's a huge difference. A huge difference. Not only size, but in playing time.
Yeah.
So you get all
mentality, because you're just maturing so rapidly at that age. So that makes sense.
And then there's other things like what being in a wealthy family, how that goes against people that aren't as fortunate or whatever. And like if people have money, they get into better programs and things like that. And that's why it tends to go hand in hand with success and stuff like that. But it's interesting.
I don't know what we were. Oh, you were saying about the quiet drive. You had a quiet drive because you were listening to Outliers.
I was listening to my book. It was a 2-hour drive, and I was on the phone a lot because I have some family stuff going on right now. So I'm just like checking in and everything. So, but we're those drives are great. Yeah. Like just kind of on your own, and I don't mind that either. Yeah. Well, you do so much traveling with the same group of people. Yeah. And I know, from driving a lot last summer and in the winter with my family, there's times where you're all just really connecting on the topic and chatting. And then there's times where it's like, please, nobody talk. Right. I just need to shut off for a little bit. And it's cool to be around people that like understand. It's like, all right, it's quiet time.
Yeah.
Like, we're just gonna.
Yeah, or mom just says it.
Yeah.
And they have to listen.
Shut up.
Pretty much.
We're going to do this 100 miles and we're going to do it silently.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah. Yes.
Did you get to do a ton of driving when you were on the West Coast or like traveling around, or were you mostly just experiencing like that area and stuff?
Well, we drove all the way out, and then I took advantage of the fact that you could walk everywhere in Vancouver or bus. So I did have to do a little driving. Eric did more of the driving if we were hiking around. But like we went up to Whistler a couple times. We were out in Chilliwack. So we did try to see the surrounding neighborhoods.
I'd love to like spend some time, like actual time out there.
Yeah, I think you
Great.
should all play a show at the Orpheum in Vancouver. It's
Orpheum?
the most beautiful concert venue I've ever seen
Really?
in my life. Yeah.
Is it big?
I
think anyone would go?
I'm not good at estimating that. Gregory Alan Isaacoff played there.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of the size
Okay.
crowd that they're drawing in.
Okay.
So-
it's probably like 1,200 people.
But yeah, it was
1,500 people.
gorgeous. It was super fun.
That's
So-
awesome. I mean, from everything I've heard, Vancouver is awesome.
Yeah, highly recommend.
Yeah.
Highly recommend. So when you do your solo shows, which I keep scheming to try to get up for one, but it hasn't happened yet, but I'm hopeful too. What's the difference in your mentality and kind of your stress level, adrenaline going into a solo show versus a band show?
It's way more stressful.
Okay.
Way more stressful. I haven't like pushed anybody to really come out to shows. Like I don't advertise them a ton because a lot of it is like playing for 3 hours. I do a lot of covers and stuff, and it's not always the most glamorous, cool thing in the world. So there's like the places I play, they're all amazing for having music and like for inviting me to play, and that's super awesome, and I'm very fortunate to do that. But like it is like every week it feels it's kind of like a job. I go in, I try to do as much preparation and stuff as I can, but when you're doing it every week for the summer, which I will be doing on Wednesdays.
Okay, good to know.
Wednesdays at the James in Needham, Massachusetts.
Okay.
It's just a little bit, like sometimes some weeks are just the same as the last week, or like, maybe I'll be tired and I'll play a little bit less, or I'll try to stretch things out or whatever, but I'm trying more to like make it more interesting and maybe have some other people come play with me.
Oh, that's fun.
Because I'm
You're
not
so well connected.
I'm just not the best guitarist in the world, and so I can only do so much. Like I can play really well rhythmically, chords and stuff. I sing well, but other than that, like if there's no solo breaks, like I can't do it. I'm not there. I'm not there with that
Well, it's
instrument.
not your first instrument either.
Right?
So,
No, not by a long shot. It's like, so I do the best I can, but when I play my songs, it's different.
Sure.
Because I know, I play them, they mean more to me than playing, Ain't No Sunshine or whatever, so, which is a great song too. But I try to make every cover I play a little bit unique.
Okay, Which,
just, just
that's
to
such
make
a
it
gift
interesting.
too, because I've heard different covers of songs that I never really cared for, and then I'll hear them. One was a Whitney Houston song that a bluegrass band did, and all of a sudden I'm like, I love this song. I love their version of it. So it's so fun to hear a cover kind of respect the original tone, but also give it its own twist. And that's a gift to be able to do that and to walk that fine line.
When I play, it's funny that we're here, because the first time I ever played here on this stage was with Love in Stockholm.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I give those guys, like Charlie and Brendan from Love in Stockholm, like they made it a point to when we did covers to like stay true to certain aspects of the song, but we completely flipped songs on their head, and we made them like we wouldn't do a cover unless we could make it our own in some kind of way. And I mean I give those guys all the credit in the world for taking the approach to playing covers like that, because not everyone does that. And you can tell like when things are like kind of bar band sounding. It's like they're playing the song, but it doesn't really like feel that awesome. You know what I mean? So that's the difference is like staying true to like the music, but also kind of doing your own thing to it.
Yeah, it's such a creative muscle that you have to flex in that way.
It takes trial and error for sure, but there's some things that you can just hear, and then others that like are like, man, all right, let's do something crazy just so I spark something,
Well, and that's like, I've sent you, when Betsy started mashing up Your Chemical and Gregory Alan Isaacoff's, and I thought, I never would have thought about it, but the way she refused to let me record her. But the way she mashed them, I thought, oh, that kind of works. That's cool. And such different songs, but yet.
Yeah. And then I started putting Bittersweet Symphony at the end of Chemical.
I heard that.
Which is like, the chords, it's like the same chord progression. I think maybe one different thing, and I was just like, oh, okay, well, I can just sing this over that, and that'll be really cool, and everyone loves that song. So.
Yeah, that was really awesome.
Yeah.
So, a couple bands recently, I'm thinking Trampled by Turtles, Steel Wheels, Avett Brothers, they've all released like legit videos. Not to say that some others, I tapped that, sorry.
Okay.
Not to say that some of the ones of just like montage videos aren't legit videos, but they actually went and shot music videos. What are your thoughts on the investment, the time investment, the monetary investment on that versus the payout?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know for sure. Like everybody, you have to have video content out there, and whether you are savvy enough to like do things down and dirty to make it look cool and make it interesting and also like be like legitimate looking. Like if you're playing anything live, that's really difficult to achieve without a lot of people and some money. And I don't know, it's hard. Like I think the days of like the super overproduced video are kind of done for a lot of bands because people can't afford that.
Right, and that's what kind of surprised me because the Avett Brothers did. It's a song kind of about growing up a country boy, and they shot it in a roller rink. So they come out in different eras of clothing, and so it's a legitimate, it's not just their performance. And the Steel Wheels did something with the lead singer Trent's daughter where she choreographed it, and they're all in a dance studio together. And so I thought, the Steel Wheels especially, they're not a hugely known band. And I thought, does it benefit them, or is it just an itch they needed to scratch?
I'm sure it does, because I mean, like, if obviously the video is memorable for you, so like it's a cool video, people talk about it, it's a way to get their name out there, it's a way to get, that video will send them to their Spotify, maybe that song gets added on a playlist or whatever, maybe that song, the video gets them a placement somewhere. It's like you have to do that thing. That's the money that you put out there to potentially get some other things. You have to make free content to be able to like get your foot in the door and have people talk about you and have cool things happen. Like if we release, if Carbon Leaf releases our album without any video content or anything, we just put it out there, it's like it's there and it's gone.
Oh wow, okay.
With video content, at least like the way that I do with reels for after the gig. Like I'll take little chunks and I'll edit them down and I can like kind of put them out throughout the week. I did one from I just posted it today from John and I's podcast from like weeks ago.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it's a funny story, and it's good on its own. So that's another piece of content that I can put out there, because not everybody is going to go and listen to the entire podcast.
Right.
And I've learned that from looking at the analytics.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm trying to, you have to be able to make a big thing, put it into small bite-sized chunks that are digestible for people, and get them to your other stuff. Like that's the game.
Yeah.
So
it is interesting. All our attention spans have.
They have, but it's more that people know how to filter out something that they think isn't that good. So you have to make good stuff. Yeah. Like people know when it's bullshit.
That is
and
true.
Like if like people listen to 3.5 hour long podcasts, millions of them do. That's a good attention span. I think that if they're not talking, if they don't get to the point, or if you don't talk, like that's the problem I have with my podcast. Like I did not get to the point until way too long, and that's a problem. So I have to be able to recognize that and get to the point, in future episodes, and you have to edit, keep editing. So it's just, I don't know. It's a little frustrating with all the stuff you have to do and all the places you have to put things. But if you have a system, if you have tools that work for you, or if you know someone that's really good with videography that has an idea that can like do it on the cheap or whatever, great. Like use everything you have at your disposal for that kind of thing. Like content is I mean, you have to do it.
Well, then we'll look forward to a Carbon Leaf music video to go with this next album.
I sure hope so.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah,
that'll be so fun.
That'd be cool.
So one thing I noticed when you all are attending, I think it was like one show where there were a couple co-bills, and I see you all watching each other's show from side stage instead of coming down with the rest of the fans. So what's unique about the view from the side stage? What's special about that keeps you all back there?
Well, I'll tell you right now, it doesn't sound as good as from out in the audience.
Okay.
But I don't know. That's an interesting one. Just like a lot of times, I will come down and kind of stand by the mixing board just for a little bit.
Yeah.
And listen, see what's going on. But yeah, side stage is cool because like you can go up there, you're in your own space, and you can watch. And it's fun, and then you go back, and you don't have to like be out there.
Stuck.
You're not stuck, so you can just go and hang out and on the couch and listen, or you can just like watch. So it's a nice perk of being back there. But yeah, I don't know. It's cool to watch and maybe catch somebody in your friend's eye on stage and like try to make a mess up or something. That's fun.
So I think that's it. My last question was, do you have any questions for me? I know that seems very self-absorbed to say, but do you have any questions for me?
Yes. I mean, like, you've been like really instrumental in helping like with the questions and everything that I ask people. So what makes you interested so much in asking so many good questions?
I think like I like to be creative and I like to create, but I am not musical at all. So that is just a world to which I feel as a listener I can appreciate, but in terms of actually being good at it, having talent and creating in that way, I have no access to that.
Yeah.
So I think I have so many questions. I just want to look at people and how do you do that? And I know it's not something you can explain, just like I can't explain, well, how did you draw that? I just did.
Drawing to me is just, it's a whole other thing. For me, it's like when I try to do it, it just always comes up like a stick figure. Like I can't visualize things like that. Like that to me is interesting. Like my buddy Nick, who works for Google, amazing artist, like can draw. He doesn't do that anymore for his job or anything like that, but he was always super talented at it from like a really young age.
Yeah.
And they can just see things and they see proportions in a certain way. So like they can make a face and they know where the foot's gonna be. And then that just doesn't make sense to me. Like I just can't see it. So it's funny. Like music is, I don't know. I feel that way about the guitar. Like I can do things because I've learned to a certain point, but I know to get any better, it's gonna be a struggle.
Okay.
And I know it's gonna be worth doing because like one day I'll be struggling and then I'll be like, got it.
Then you'll
and
get over that hump.
that's like hitting that great golf shot. It hooks you.
Yeah, that I can't do either.
Yeah, neither can I. I used to play, but I don't play anymore. But I just I don't know. It's really, really hard.
Yeah.
But you do great stuff, like you bring us cookies. You brought me balsamic vinegar, which is,
I can bring people things.
Support.
Food is pretty much our whole family's love language. So we're good at providing food and stuff like that. But yeah, we obviously love music. Some of my kids have a little bit of musical talent, and that's great. But it's just between it being such a foreign talent to me, and also the life of a musician is just so different than mine, which is so regular and at home and this and that. So it seems so opposite.
This is the only part that's irregular. Like everything else is so normal.
Yeah.
It's just all right, see you later, gonna go play.
City every night and having to do that drive and the Tetris game of in and out with equipment and stuff like that. And I thought that's just, it's a grind different. And then having to talk to people, like new people in every city and just thinking like that, it's just such a different world to me. And I think people easily romanticize it when there are some definite perks, but it's a grind.
Yeah.
Too.
It is, It's exciting, but the grind of it can definitely take, over a period of time, can take a toll.
I'm sure, especially I would guess since you have kids, like
Yeah.
There's,
oh yeah. Like,
sometimes you have to be super thankful you're not at home, but then other times,
yeah.
you know.
Like this week, it was nice to get away.
Okay.
And but like, you know, I'm also excited about getting back home.
Yeah.
But it's only like 3 or 4 shows.
That's right. It's a good short run.
So it's super short, and I'll be home. You know, I left on Tuesday night. I'll be home on Monday morning.
Okay.
And that's not really a big deal. It's like when it gets like 10 days on, that's when you really have to like hone yourself in and like find your you know, your stride and just, you know, get in your road routine.
Yeah, kind of get in that zone and stay there.
Yeah, and I tried to get out and talk to people more after shows the last couple of runs, just because, like, you know, it is something that I think we miss out on nowadays. I think it's an important thing to do in a band that's our size and our level. I think we still need to connect with fans in a certain way. It's why After the Gig is so important to me.
Right.
And it's not always, like you said, it's not easy to do that all the time because you're tired, you're sweaty, you're uncomfortable, you don't want to like, that's why I don't love going out. But when you go out and you see, like, if there's a lot of kids and stuff in the audience, that, you know, I remember how it felt when I went to a show and I got to talk to the drummer afterwards. Like, it was, you know, it's something I'll never forget.
Right.
So to be able to create those moments for other kids that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And for other people, you know.
Yeah, that's
great.
really awesome. And you guys all, I don't know how much you can see from behind your drum set, but you guys in general are good at noticing kids and letting them know you notice them.
If I see a kid in the audience, I'm like, all right, well, that one's getting my drumstick.
Just start throwing them at them.
It's like, here you go.
Yeah.
Take
Whip
them.
it at them.
Yeah.
So.
Which I just got a new batch of drumsticks, so I'm excited. So I can give them away. So that's good. Now I can start giving away.
We'll look for flying drumsticks at the end of the show. So unless you have any more questions for me, I think
I honestly
done.
I don't.
I'll start thinking.
I'll think for next time.
Next year. We'll probably be back at Sellersville next year.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I love it. Thanks.
Thanks for taking a chance on me and letting me do this.
Of course. You should have your own podcast. This is great.